Hello and welcome to Continental Prime here on News Centre Television, reaching you live from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. I'm Sulaiman. I led the headlines for this hour. Southern African leaders extend military mission in Mozambique. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari to present 2020 budget to lawmakers on Thursday. Chad's interim parliament sworn in by head of military junta. Details shortly. For viewers across the continent and the rest of the world, this is Continental Prime on News Centre Television. Now, South Africa's search for a new top judge is officially underway. The current Chief Justice retires in mid-October, and the Constitution requires the President to appoint his replacement. The first phase of the process is underway, and now 8 candidates are being considered for the job. But it wouldn't be an easy selection process, as at least 4 of the candidates have strong backing in the legal fraternity. Now, to unpack this further, South African journalist and editor Diane Hawker joins me now. Good to see you, Diane. Now, let's start with a list of candidates. There are 8 names, we understand, on that list, and 2 of them have some controversy around them.
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, Suleiman, and good evening to the viewers. Quite an interesting list released by the presidency. One of the names on the candidate is on the list of candidates is Judge John Hlophe, who is quite a controversial judge because he's recently been found guilty of misconduct, both by a tribunal as well as by the Judicial Service Commission, which is the body that is responsible for the process around disciplining judges. Also, another candidate who has been who's on that list is our current public protector, and she's turned out to also be quite a controversial addition to that list, considering the fact that she's lost a number of court challenges against decisions that she has made, and some of those losses have actually taken place at the Constitutional Court. Now, the Chief Justice in South Africa is the head of the judiciary as well as the head of the country's highest court, which is the Constitutional Court. So it's quite a significant position. The Chief Justice is basically on par with the Speaker of Parliament as one of the heads of government. So quite an important role in our judiciary. So additions like that to that list will obviously be watched quite closely to see if they make the shortlist or not.
Well, we understand there are other strong contenders, like the man who's been trending in South Africa, Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo from the State Capture Commission. He's among them, isn't he?
Absolutely. And Judge Zondo is actually currently the acting Chief Justice because our Chief Justice has been on long leave since May. He is seen as quite a strong contender, but there are some concerns that he spent most of the time that he was at court, almost about 3 years now, working at the commission instead of actually being within the court space working at the Constitutional Court. The other strong contender is Justice Mandisa Maya, who is the current head of the Supreme Court of Appeal. The Supreme Court of Appeal is the second highest court in South Africa, based in Bloemfontein, and she's seen as quite a strong contender, the only woman on that list, in fact, and because she's been in a leadership role, she is also a very strong advocate for making sure that women are able to ascend within South Africa's judiciary, and she does have the backing of a number of people in the legal fraternity, as well as some of the magistrates who form part of the Magistrates Commission. Another Constitutional Court judge, Judge Mbuyiseni Madlanga, also seen as a strong contender. He was the evidence leader in another very public process here in South Africa, the Marikana Commission. So in a way, he's also a bit of a household name. Of course, we'll have to see who gets shortlisted. The president has requested a shortlist of between 3 and 5 names from the panel that he's set up. And we'll have to see who of those people actually make it onto that shortlist.
Well, talking about the president, Ramaphosa has chosen to have an advisory panel handle the shortlisting process, which, well, to the ordinary man there on the street would think that that was a fantastic one. But the president has been criticized for this.
Yes, absolutely. The Constitution isn't actually clear on how specifically the president should select the candidate, which leaves it open for every president to really make their own process as they go along. Now, President Ramaphosa has decided to set up a panel, and some of the people on that panel are the former public protector, for example, Thuli Madonsela, as well as the current and former justice ministers. Now, the criticism has come from some civil society groups, with them saying that he shouldn't have that many political appointees on the panel, that he should have added someone who was perhaps a former a constitutional court judge or someone from the legal profession instead of having both the current and former justice minister. But it seems like the president is going to continue with the process that he has chosen because he hasn't responded to those complaints. And quite frankly, there isn't really anything at present that can be done because the Constitution doesn't set out how that process should actually be done.
Are there more criteria that these panel will use in its selection process?
Yes, well, interestingly, there wasn't initially any criteria, but the presidency has put out, as part of the announcement of the names, they've put out some terms of reference for the panel, as well as some criteria. And amongst the criteria, he's mentioned that the person who takes over the position as Chief Justice should have a very strong understanding of the separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary and have been a champion for that separation of power and for the independence of the judiciary. He's also said that they should have a very strong understanding of human rights issues and made specific reference to the rights of members of the LGBTQI community, which, as we know, globally has also become quite an important issue. So those are the parameters that have been set out for the first time, really, that we have some specific parameters set out for the selection of a Chief Justice. And the panel will be also getting comments from the general public. Those comments must be submitted by the 15th of October, and then they will have to submit that information to the president by the end of October.
So going forward, what are we likely to see now with this team?
Okay, as mentioned, they will have to get the public comments, and after that, we'll then have to submit their list of names to the president. The president will then be able to select a representative. He might even select more than one person who can then be interviewed by the Judicial Service Commission. The Judicial Service Commission is constitutionally mandated to basically oversee the appointment of judges. And he also has to consult with the heads of all the different political parties who are in the National Assembly. The Constitution doesn't specify what that consultation process should involve, but most likely he could follow a similar approach to what he's done with the COVID-19 situation, where he holds meetings with opposition leaders and then comes to a finding after that. So in all likelihood, we should have a new Chief Justice by early November who can take over that role and continue to be the head of the courts in South Africa.
Diane Hawker, many thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Now, staying in the region, leaders from Southern Africa have extended their military mission to smoke out insurgents rampaging in northern Mozambique. This comes as a 3-month mission of the Southern African Development Community, which began in July 15, is coming to an end. Executive Secretary of SADC, Elias Magosi, told journalists in Gauteng, South Africa, that the extension will consolidate stability in the region. The violence has disrupted major gas exploration projects and raised fears it could spread to neighboring countries.
Summit approved the extension of the SAMIM to continue with offensive operations against terrorists and violent extremists to consolidate stability of security and create a conducive environment for resettlement of the population and facilitate humanitarian assistance, operations, and sustainable development.
Now, opposition parties in Angola have signed a memorandum of understanding to join forces in the general elections scheduled for 2022. The National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, UNITA, Democratic Bloc and PRAJA, Severi Angola signed the agreement on Tuesday under a coalition known as the United Patriotic Front. The coalition will challenge the ruling People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, which has governed the country since independence from Portugal in 1975.
A alternância que propomos à nação visa libertar o país do estagnante controle partidário, do medo, do excessivo poder das oligarquias que asfixiam o desenvolvimento e fomentam a corrupção, que sugam a riqueza de todos e a todos empobrece, mas também da pequena corrupção que desorganiza o Estado na base e também contribui para o desencorajamento do investimento externo, afetando a credibilidade do nosso país.
Vários exemplos poderiam ser listados para mostrar que na longa história de governação do Partido do Poder, as más práticas governativas, mesmo depois de denunciadas publicamente, passaram impunes. O lema desta elite é o seguinte: se eles falam, mas deixam passar a nossa caravana, não nos preocupam. Mas se tentam travar a caravana, nós agimos violentamente e sem dó.
Apenas proclamar solenemente a nossa prontidão e disponibilidade de, por Angola e pelos angolanos, trabalharmos para realizarmos alternância política em 2022.
É um momento que vai marcar a história da política a nível do país, tendo em vista as próximas eleições de 2022 e com esta frente unida, patriótica, só vem exatamente então renovar as esperanças do povo angolano.
Well, still on electoral matters, but in West Africa, Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission has expressed worry over the safety of voters in the upcoming Anambra State governorship elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu told reporters on Tuesday that the Commission is also worried about the safety of election duty staff on election day and called for more effort to ensure their safety.
The Commission is particularly concerned about the safety of voters on election day, as well as the safety of election duty staff, including security officials who have become the targets of these attacks as well. The thousands of young Nigerians that we intend to deploy for the election, most of them National Youth Service Corps members and university students, need to be reassured of their personal safety. At the same time, deployment for the election will involve the movement of huge consignments of sensitive and non-sensitive materials to the 21 local government areas of the state, 326 wards or registration areas, 5,720 polling units. That means also that there are 6,000 locations to be protected. If we add that to about 26,000 officials that will be deployed for the election, we begin to appreciate the magnitude of the challenge in securing the Anambra governorship election, which is only 32 days away from today.
The Office of the National Security Advisor is working assiduously with relevant security and intelligence agencies toward arresting the foregoing ugly trend and other associated security challenges in the Southeast zone and beyond. This determination of the presidency is already being translated into action by the recent joint military operation codenamed Golden Dawn in the Southeast, as well as other security operations across the country. This is in addition to the increasing collaboration between the federal and state Southeast governors toward addressing the underlying socioeconomic drivers of insecurity in the region. Once again, ONSA wish to reiterate the federal government's commitment for the protection of lives and property of all law-abiding citizens before, during, and after the elections, while finally calling on all peace-loving Nigerians of the Southeast extraction to join hands with constituted authority to promote peace and development across the region and beyond.
In the meantime, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari will present the 2022 appropriation bill to a joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives on Thursday. The Deputy President of the Senate, Ovie Omoagege, disclosed this on Tuesday in the Senate chamber of the National Assembly in Abuja. Omoagege also told lawmakers that President Buhari has submitted the revised 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. In a letter, the president asked the lawmakers to approve the planning documents, which he said would form the basis and assumptions in the 2022 budget. The Nigeria's parliament has described as worrisome and unfair the inability of President Buhari to suspected sponsors of terrorism in the country. One lawmaker, Ben Igbakba, criticized the president's Independence Day speech, which accused a member of parliament of sponsoring the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. He also urged President Buhari to commence the prosecution of the suspect speedily.
Mr. Speaker, they have been calling me all over the world. My friends have been telling me, who among you is that person sponsoring terrorists? Mr. Speaker, the right thing for a father to do, Mr. President is the father of the country today. The right thing for any father to do is to name and shame any child that is bringing about division or anything that will affect the family. But Mr. President did not shame that person. He did not name them. Instead, he named 469 members. Because of the fact that we have always cooperated, and in line with the fact that Nigeria is having a lot to deal with, Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal. If not, the right thing to do is to invoke Section 88 of the Constitution so that they can tell us who among us is the person that is sponsoring terrorism.
Now moving to Central Africa, members of Chad's interim parliament, known as the National Transitional Council, have been officially sworn in. The 93 members were sworn in by Mohamed Idris Deby Itno, the head of Chad's military junta and ruler of the country since the death of his father Idris Deby Itno in April. Members of the former opposition of the late President Deby are among the members, but none from the opposition platform Wakit Tama or from the civil society organizations who have denounced the younger Deby's rule were sworn in. Now let's go to East of Africa, where the first round of food distributions to people in Afar and Amara regions who have been impacted by the spread of the conflict in northern Ethiopia has been completed. However, the World Food Programme warned that distributions of supplies into Tigray are lagging due to various impediments to the movement of humanitarian aid. WFP spokesperson Thompson Ferry told reporters on Tuesday that one of the major impediments to the delivery of cargo was that a vast majority of commercial trucks have not been able to return from Tigray. However, he said WFP has continued to work with commercial transporters to overcome any issues deterring the trucks from leaving.
Needs of the humanitarian sector mean that 100 trucks need to be arriving daily to provide full food baskets of cereals, pulses, and vegetable oil to 210,000 people a day. Fuel stocks in Tigray are running critically low, and fuel is vital to keep operations running and facilitating the movement of humanitarian aid into and across the region. We need 200,000 liters of fuel entering Tigray each week to keep operations running. We need 184 million to continue to scale up the response in northern Ethiopia, whilst for all its activities in the country, WFP has a funding shortfall of $426 million. Up to 7 million people across the three regions now, Tigray, Amara, and Afar, are now in dire need of food assistance. So you have 5.2 million people in Tigray, and the rest are in Afar and Amara. In terms of our plan, WFP aims to reach almost 3.5 million people across the three regions, 2.7 million in Tigray, 210,000 in Amara, and up to 540,000 in Afar in the next round of distribution.
Staying in the region, 700 Chinese peacekeepers have been awarded the prestigious United Nations Medal for their commitment in shaping a more peaceful and prosperous future for the people of South Sudan. The peacekeepers were decorated during a colorful ceremony at the mission's headquarters in Juba. The event was attended by the Secretary General's Special Representative Nicholas Haysom and the Chinese ambassador to South Sudan, Hua Ning, who commended China for its commitment to the United Nations. The Blue Beret from China have been serving for peace in South Sudan since the inception of UNAMIS in 2011, protecting civilians and building trust among local communities.
Today it is my privilege to recognize the 700 men and women of China Battalion 7 who have served in their duties with the utmost dedication and professionalism. I commend the Government of the People's Republic of China for its commitment to the United Nations, including the over 2,400 peacekeepers currently serving in UN missions worldwide. Specifically, we recognize the impact you've made on the ground through civil-military cooperation, including medical assistance to local residents, a cultural exchange program at the University of Juba, employment outreach in Terekeka, all of which have helped to improve the livelihoods of residents and contributed to sustainable peace in South Sudan.
The French President Emmanuel Macron will host a conference on Africa on Friday as he aims to readjust France's relationship with the continent. Instead of other heads of state and premiers, Macron is inviting hundreds of young business people, artists and sporting figures to the southern city of Montpellier. The conference is aimed at listening to the words of African youth and to leave behind obsolete formulas and frameworks. Roughly 3,000 participants, including more than 1,000 young people, are expected in the city for discussions on economic, cultural, and political issues. Now, today is World Teachers' Day, and educators across the globe have been working very hard to do their job following the disruption of the system by COVID-19 pandemic. This disruption has forced educators to turn to new methods of teaching. As the world commemorates the 2021 World Teachers' Day, educationists in Nigeria reflect on the changes as well as the challenges and the effect on the education sector.
Teachers are often referred to other similar names, including educators, mentors, instructors, superheroes, and sometimes the accidental mom. And that is why being a teacher is seen as a privilege and having one is a blessing. World Teachers' Day is a day to commemorate the unique and vital role of teachers in every country and continent of the world. Focusing on the 2021 theme, Teachers at the Heart of Recovery, educationists in Nigeria reflect on the changes brought to the sector by the pandemic.
The education sector has not fully recovered. We are recovering. A lot of children are still out of school. Many parents lost their jobs during the pandemic. A lot of lives were lost. And so at this time, we don't even have full enrollment. Many children have left for alternative forms of education. And it's really a sad time. We're doing all we can to ensure that the transition is good for the children.
From traditional teaching to screen sharing, from chalkboard to whiteboard, and from classroom to chat room, teachers share their experiences through the transition journey while affirming that the pandemic is a blessing in disguise to the education sector.
COVID era indeed, brought out the bullish in all teachers and also schools. During the COVID period, in this school particularly, we didn't see it as a much challenge as that. What it did was to bring out the best in us as per technology, and we really made use of technology at that time. It was so challenging, but at the same time, it helped to bring out the best in us as educators.
Before the COVID, we only do that for physical learning, but now we also do both physical and online teaching. There are exams, we do the both too. They have the one they do online and they have the one we do physical. So this one has really bring out the best in us, even as a teacher, making us to be the 21st century teacher more, and also for the children. So we are raising up 21st century children too.
However, students expressed gratitude to their teachers for all they have done and for helping them cope with the pressures of the new normal.
I wish I had money. I would have bought a car for her.
It's World Teachers Day. I'm going to give my teachers a love letter.
Teachers remain one of the few set of professionals whose impact in every society cannot be overemphasized. Here is joining others to say Happy Teachers Day. Omolola Ololade reporting for News Central.
Well, earlier in Breakfast Central, two seasoned educationists, Ifeanyi Chukwu Bernard Oti, boarding principal, Anthony Campos, Green Springs School, Lagos, and Adekunbi Osisomi, who is also an educationist and director, Disabi International School, Lagos, spoke on the importance of the day.
What we are contributing into the nation and building lives, bringing up the doctors, the lawyers, the architects, the engineers, and all. So it feels so great. We are so happy, so excited. Teachers in schools today are so happy. They've been dancing and enjoying themselves.
Being a teacher for so many years, I'm elated that the world celebrates, set aside a day, celebrates teachers. And indeed, we ought to be celebrated. Any teacher or an educational institution that wants to remain at the top of their game must always send teachers for training, and that's what we know to do best in our school.
Well, still on World Teachers Day, heads of UN agencies say sub-Saharan Africa will need 15 million more primary and secondary teachers by 2030 for the education system to recover from the effect of the pandemic. Now, at an event to mark World Teachers Day, they say teachers are the driving force behind global education recovery from the pandemic. The agency heads say more investment is required in the well-being, training, professional development and working conditions of the world's 71 million educators. Now, major social media services, including Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, were hit by massive outage on Monday, impacting potentially tens of millions of users. The global outage, which lasted for more than 6 hours, affected online business and transactions, with Facebook losing over $6 billion. Now, News Central's Ni Omoni captures the pause of social media active users.
So I was like, maybe my data wasn't on. You understand? I checked my data. I have data. I said, what's the issue? The thing couldn't work.
I'm not this kind of WhatsApp freak. So I was using my time for other things.
I was so angry because I have so many things to do that yesterday, but I didn't do it.
I tried using ordinary short message, but it didn't satisfy my my conversation. It wasn't comfortable.
These comments and posts are few of the reactions of over 2.7 billion users impacted by the media outage, which affected major media services including Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp for more than 6 hours. Although services are gradually returning to normal after the hours-long global outage, Bloomberg, a market analysis site, estimates that Facebook lost over $6 billion, while social media marketers and influencers are not exempted.
Online businesses, like you call it, is business. So you make money off that, or connections or relationships or networking. So when it's down, you're worried. You're like, oh my God, like, am I losing something, or am I, you should be worried because that's where you get your money from. But once you get back and look at it like, okay, maybe the emails, that I don't think emails were down. So if at all you were chatting or discussing business through DMs or messengers or all those platforms, WhatsApp in particular, then you just catch up, and I think the person is going to understand.
I left the data on, I slept. It was this morning I noticed that it started working.
A lot of my business is on social media, so I feel so worried. I couldn't sleep.
When the Twitter was shut down, what did you do? You didn't do anything now, so we abide by it.
According to Data Reporter, 4.80 billion people around the world used the internet in July 2021. That's almost 61% of the world's total population. Will it be the right time to start considering an alternative should social media crash again and place the world on pause?
We depend on it for our marketing. We are running campaigns for so many people. It's time to start to think about regional or local alternatives, especially because there are many advantages that this can bring to the regions.
Since it's a relatively new technology, there's little research to establish the long-term consequences, good or bad, of social media use. However, multiple studies have found a strong link between heavy social media and an increased risk for depression, anxiety, loneliness, self-harm, and even suicidal thoughts.
This means the social media users must take responsibility of their actions and whatever they do on this social media platform, so that they can enjoy the benefit of both worlds. Ni Omoni, reporting for News Central.
You're watching Continental Prime. Coming up, Nigeria records zero COVID-19 death for the second consecutive day. We'll have more on this and other stories when we return. Stay with us. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television, reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria. Now, we continue with our coverage of the coronavirus pandemic across the African continent, which takes us to South Africa, where a vaccine certificate featuring a scannable QR code was launched on Tuesday. This comes as President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that South Africa would have a standardized proof of vaccination to facilitate travel, access to organization gatherings and other forms of activity. The Health Department says the digital copy of the physical vaccine card is linked to the QR code issued by the electronic vaccination data system. In the meantime, more than 18 million South Africans have now received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. This comes after the government distributed 184,324 doses in the past 24 hours. As of Monday, the number of fully vaccinated adults now stands at 9.21 million, of which 129,539 people have been given the Johnson & Johnson's single-dose vaccine or the two-dose series made by Pfizer in the last 24 hours. Let's go to Tanzania, where the government says it's confident that the 1.05 million doses of Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccines donated by the U.S. government will be used up before their December expiry date. The Ministry of Health says the number of people turning up daily to be inoculated across the country has risen from 3,000 to nearly 50,000 per day, following a recent mass campaign. The nationwide vaccination officially started in early August, with President Samia Suluhu Hassan taking a shot on camera. However, the government intensified the mass vaccination campaign in recent weeks after President Hassan expressed dissatisfaction about the vaccination progress. In Nigeria, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency has rather cleared the air over the West African countries' status with the UK regarding high-risk COVID-19 countries. Executive Officer of the agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, told journalists in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, that Nigeria's status has not changed and that a statement from the UK Foreign Office mandating Nigerians to quarantine when entering the UK is not out of place.
I would like to seize this opportunity to comment on the UK government statement which was released yesterday. Nigeria's status has not changed. Nigeria is not among the red-listed countries that need to mandatorily quarantine for 14 days in a supervised UK facility. The statement released by the UK government is consistent with the press statement released last week that Nigerians will continue to isolate upon arrival to the United Kingdom. This is similar to our requirement that travelers from the UK should isolate for 7 days when they arrive in Nigeria.
WHO does not mandate COVID-19 vaccination as a criteria to enter any country. As we said before, we need to make sure that we vaccinate a large number of the target population to achieve herd immunity. WHO has set a target of 10% of the population vaccinated by end of September and 40% by end of December this year. So we would like to urge the Nigerian government, to the NPSCDA, and with your collaboration, to scale up vaccination, to speed up, to reach that target.
Meanwhile, a healthcare official says Nigeria expects to receive more than 3 million doses of Pfizer vaccines in the next 2 weeks. This comes after France on Monday donated 501,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccines to Nigeria. Nearly 5 million people across the country have received their first jab, representing about 4% of the targeted 111 million eligible to take the vaccine. So far, 2 million people have been fully vaccinated. Now, staying in Nigeria, no death has been recorded for the second straight day. However, the figures compiled daily by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says 141 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded across the country on Monday. The NCDC on Tuesday says the 101 new cases were reported from 9 states of the Federation, adding that Nigeria is currently in the middle of the third wave of the virus, with transmission driven mainly by the Delta variant. The agency says more than 194,000 patients have successfully been treated and discharged across the country, with over 3.04 million samples tested and 9,389 active cases. You're watching Continental Prime. Still ahead, United Nations calls for a $251 million multi-sector response to meet the water needs of 3.4 million people in north and northeastern Syria. Join us again. The United Nations has called for a multi-sector response to the water crisis in north and northeastern Syria after 5 million people are said to be affected. The body on Tuesday says that it needs $251 million to meet the water needs of 3.4 million of the most impacted people over the next 6 months. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the people across the northern parts of Syria have been unable to reliably access sufficient and safe water owing to low water levels, disruption of water systems, and the already reduced operational capacity of water stations.
Turning to Syria, where we've received reports that 5 million people are being affected by the ongoing water crisis in the north and northeast of the country. People across northern parts of Syria have been unable to reliably access sufficient and safe water due to low water levels, disruption of water systems, and the already reduced operational capacity of water stations. Lack of safe drinking water is leading to an increased prevalence of waterborne diseases and is reducing a critical first line of defense to stem the COVID-19 pandemic. The lack of electricity also adds to the strain of public health, education system, and is disproportionately impacted the general and reproductive health of women and girls. We, along with our partners, have released a consolidated plan over the next 6 months, which will target 3.4 million of the most impacted people in those areas of Syria as a result of the water crisis. The requirements identify the necessity of a multi-sector response to $251 million. Only $51 million have been received.
South Africa's biggest metal workers union have begun an indefinite strike, seeking pay rises and threatening to block supplies of parts to make new cars and accessories. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, with a membership of about 155,000 members, has called for a total shutdown of the engineering industry after wage talks with employer bodies reached a deadlock and arbitration failed. The union organized marches and rallies across the country on Tuesday, with thousands attending a demonstration in downtown Johannesburg. The body had sought an 8% across-the-board wage rise and an increase equal to the inflation rate plus 2% for the following 2 years. Annual inflation is currently around 5%. For the rest of the business news, let's join Lekon Onobanjo.
Hello and welcome to Business News on NC Continental Prime. I am Lekon Onobanjo. OPEC Plus has announced that it would stick to an existing pact for a gradual increase in oil output, sending crude prices to 3-year highs and adding to inflationary pressures that consuming nations fear will derail an economic recovery from the pandemic. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Russia and their allies, known as OPEC Plus, have faced calls from big consumers such as the United States and India for extra supplies after oil prices surged more than 50% this year. In a statement, OPEC Plus said it has reconfirmed the production adjustment plan, referring to a previously agreed deal under which 400,000 barrels per day would be added in November. Meanwhile, Uganda's national carrier, Uganda Airlines, has started direct flights to Dubai, the first intercontinental flight for the carrier since it was revamped 2 years ago. This comes after the United Arab Emirates took Uganda off its red list last month, allowing the airline to proceed with plans to fly to Dubai. According to the airline, the UAE, and most especially Dubai, is important for both the formal and informal trade for Uganda, and is thus looking to tap into the demand for traders traveling to the Middle and Far East. Let's now tell you that smallholder farmers and rural cooperatives across Zambia will benefit from a new 30 million euros initiative from a local firm called Zanaco and the European Union to accelerate agricultural investments launched in Lusaka and Luxembourg. The new initiative will improve agricultural productivity, upgrade agricultural processing, and support a sector severely impacted by COVID-19 challenges. The financing scheme will be managed by Zanaco and is backed by the European Union and European Investment Bank as part of the broader Team Europe support for sustainable commercialization of Zambian smallholder farmers. This represents the first targeted support for agriculture in Zambia by the European Investment Bank. Trade within the East African community has dropped by 5.5% in 2020 to reach 649 billion Kenyan shillings. This has been linked to the global COVID-19 pandemic that had a negative impact on trade. EAC imports declined to 396 billion Kenyan shillings in 2020 from 434.5 billion Kenyan shillings in 2019. However, exports from the bloc increased 3% year-on-year to 1.8 trillion Kenyan shillings. Meanwhile, Kenya's 2020 exports to the East African community rose by 12.7% to hit 1.44 billion Kenyan shillings, an increase from $1.28 billion in 2019, accounting for 64.3% of the country's total exports to Africa. Overall, Kenya's exports to Africa rose by 9.8% to $2.24 billion from $2.04 billion in 2019. Egypt, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa have been ranked as the top 3 countries on the continent that attracted foreign direct investments over the past decade. This was contained in a report published by the African Development Bank. We bring you details in this report. According to a report titled Entrepreneurship and Free Trade, Volume 2 by the African Development Bank, Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa were mentioned as the top African countries that accounted for more than a third of the incubators and accelerators and 80% of investments in Africa. Literally, this means they make up more than a third of financing in Africa, reflecting a measure of concentration. Can it be attributed to the volume of financial transactions, economic policies, or populations perceived to be larger and more robust than most of African countries?
This also reflects the hands-on and this government's each government's hands-on on investment security through stable economy and reducing policy uncertainty in each of the country. So for me, and when you look at the purchasing power of these countries, we bring us to the population size now. We realize that they are far better when you compare them to lower economies.
According to the report, Egypt attracted FDI of about $56.2 billion between 2011 and 2020, followed by Nigeria with about $45.1 billion and South Africa with about $41.3 billion in the same period. How translatable are these statistics to the economic growth of these countries and their citizens, and what are the ways of improvement?
To improve the impact of FDI on citizens of these African countries, I think their governments need to look beyond just rolling out policies that favors businesses. It is time to protect the employees as well. Ensure and set a standard and ensure that most of the investments that are being disbursed are not just going into machinery, but they're also going into competitive salary, as well as aside from competitive salary, also human capital development. When these are done, we get to see the changes or the reflection on households across Nigeria and Africa.
The report also advised that there should be a restructuring and commercialization of state-owned enterprises for proper management, more financial accruals, and an enhanced economic value. Lekon Onobanjo reporting for News Central. And that's business news at this hour. I am Lekon Onobanjo. NC Continental Prime continues shortly.
Well, thanks, Lekon. Now, in sports tonight, the 2025 World Athletics Championships could be coming to Africa, specifically the continent's east. Onyobara has the rest of the story.
Good evening to you, Sulai. Thank you so much. Now, in the world of sport, we'll say 7 goal winners from the first leg on away ground, Nigeria's under-20 girls Falconets. They feel no pressure as they host their counterparts from the Central African Republic in the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup, Costa Rica 2022, at the Mobalaji Johnson Arena on Wednesday evening. Coach Christopher Danjuma and his assistant drilled the girls in a 2-hour intense training session at the legacy pitch of the National Stadium, Surulere. Despite Nigeria's comprehensive 7-0 win in Cameroon, Danjuma insists that his girls will not be complacent when they face the Central African Republic on Wednesday.
We could do what we did in Cameroon. We should be able to do more here in our home ground because our fans, we are making our fans, Nigeria as a whole, proud. So we have to double our efforts as a team, individually and collectively.
Now, Bayana captain Janine van Wyk has left Scottish champions Glasgow City to join the club she founded in South Africa. The nation's most capped player, Van Wyk, started JVW FC in 2013 and have worked their way up to the Women's Super League. The 34-year-old joined Glasgow City in August 2020, only to suffer a long-term knee injury in training. The South African captain returned to action in time to help City win their 14th successive league title in June. Later that month, she announced her departure only to strike a deal with the Scotland side in late July. A few Super Eagles players we hear have arrived in the country ahead of the 2022 World Cup qualifying double-header against the Central African Republic. Nigeria hosts the Wild Beasts of Central African Republic on October 7 in Lagos, before travelling to Cameroon for the reverse fixture 3 days later. Casio chief Daniel Akpeyi, CSK Moscow Chidera Ejike, as well as Alayaspor FC Chidozia Waziem are some of the early birds in camp. More players are expected as Gannett Roll squad starts preparation for the fixture today. Now, finally, in the world of sports, South Africa's Springboks will play the matches to wrap up what will end up being a 13-test calendar season for the 2019 World Cup champions. This comes after World Rugby confirmed all fixtures for the upcoming November end-of-the-year tour of Europe by a number of Southern Hemisphere sides. Now, the team led by captain Siya Kolisi and regained the #1 world ranking after their most recent victory over the All Blacks of New Zealand last weekend. Will play Wales on November 6, Scotland on November 13, and England on November 20 on their tour to the United Kingdom. Springboks have also started to win over Georgia before beating the British and Irish Lions 2-1 in their 3-test series. And there you have it, sports stories at this time. I am Onyechi Obaru. Back to you, Sulai.
Many thanks, Onyechi. Coming up on the news, entertainment with Sam Dandy, and of course, the weather report. Stay with us.
Thank you very much. Let's get into entertainment. Now, after about a 7-hour shutdown of social media apps, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, some celebrities have aired their opinions on yesterday's downtime. Now, first was Nigerian fashion stylist Yomi Casual. Now, in a recent post, he told the new crop of celebrities to respect their older colleagues. Now, this is what he says. He says, this should serve as a lesson to y'all 21st century celebrities and business owners. You are nothing without the media. Respect those who made it to the top without social media. Now, in Nigeria and of course all parts of the world, this shutdown frustrated billions of users, both business owners and celebrities alike. Well, Ghanaian dancehall musician Shatta Wale, on the other hand, made humor out of the situation in a post on Twitter. Oh, very funny for him to do that there. But of course, companies offered an apology, those apps, in a brief statement, just before it was restored a few hours later from WhatsApp, both Instagram and of course Facebook. Now let's move to this other story. Now, for all music lovers, Nigerian R&B star Banky W has revealed that he has finished recording his forthcoming album. Now it's going to be titled The Bank Statements. Now the singer and serial entrepreneur, who hasn't released a studio album since 2013, has focused on his acting career with successful films like Wedding Party 1 and 2, and of course, if you remember, his political run for office. Now, speaking about the album, Banky W said, and I quote, "If you think about your bank statement from January to December, it's kind of a snapshot of your life. There is a song for every month of the year." Now, so there's the January-December song of appreciation. There's a February for Valentine dedicated to his wife, Adesua, on the album. There's also a 9th song representing the birth of their son together, and that one is called the Champ Song. Well, that's so much we know about the album. But of course, we've been huge fans of the couple since their hit song, Made for You. Now, this is over 5 years ago. Let's remind ourselves of the great voice that Banky has. Aren't they just couple goals? Well, still in West Africa, let's go to Gold Coast, where 18-year-old Ghanaian musician Yaw Tog has warned Instagram trolls to stop using the phrase, and I quote, "go and learn," after he's done writing his WAEC exams this Thursday. Now, of course, as a requirement for school graduation, Yaw Tog has doubled being a young music sensation and a final year student of Opoku-Ware Senior High School, and will be completing the 2021 West Africa Senior School Certification exams. Now, with awards like Best Hip Hop Song of the Year and Best Hip Hop Song of the Year, the 18-year-old got the international recognition with the hit song Sorry Remix. Now, this one got people's attention because it features UK rapper Stormzy, and of course, Kwesi Arthur. Let's watch this.
Yeah, make your mama, yeah, make your mama, yeah, make your mama.
An 18-year-old doing great things. Well, he's not the only musician who's taking academics seriously. One of Nigeria's most influential disc jockeys, I'm talking DJ Cuppy, has just started her second master's degree. Now, this time it's at Oxford University. Now, the billionaire's daughter and founder of Cuppy Foundation took to Twitter to post her first day of class and told fans to wish her the best of luck. Now, if you recall, she completed her first master's degree in music business at New York University in 2015. Now, what can I say? We certainly wish Cuppy all the best. Well, that's so much on entertainment. Back to Sulai with the rest of the news.
Many thanks, Sammy. Let's go to our weather desk to see what to expect in terms of sunshine and precipitation across the continent. And it's a wrap, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Leaders from Southern Africa have extended their military mission in Mozambique. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari will on Thursday present the 2020 budget to the 2021 budget to a joint session of the National Assembly. And finally, we told you that members of Chad's interim parliament have been sworn in by the head of the country's military junta. Well, do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live on Star Times, Channel 274, Avio TV, Channel 23, Vision 247, Free TV, as well as on YouTube. I'm Sulaiman Aled. Many thanks for watching.